No one is safe. Thinking that democracy can defend itself, it's a wrong narrative. Democracy is what you believe in and how far you're willing to go to defend it. And I think now it's even by many American friends who have nothing but contempt for Trump. I think they do not recognize the seriousness of the threat to American democracy coming from Trump's second coming.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. First up, we have a former world chess champion and Russian dissident, chairman of the Renew Democracy Initiative. In April, he launched The Next Move on Substack, which offers in-depth analysis of the shifting front lines in the battle against authoritarianism and strategic insights on what to do next. It's Garry Kasparov. How you doing, sir? Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for inviting me.
I assume that our listeners and viewers are at minimum familiar with your, decade and a half long reign as the grandmaster chess champion of the entire world. But maybe give folks a little backstory on, the dissident part of your background and your political activism.
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Soviet Union, 62. So grew up in a family of engineers. And if you want to look for the roots of my dissident views, you have to dig. You have to dig deep to look at my family education. My father died when I was 7, but still I was surrounded by family members who were, critical about Soviet life. And as a chess prodigy, I traveled early. First time I went abroad, I was 13 in 1976 to visit France, representing my country, Soviet Union, as the junior champion under 18. And I quickly recognized the shortcomings of the Soviet political system, even being at a young age. And the most important, I saw the gap between reality and propaganda. And as the youngest world champion at age 22, so I thought that was the right moment for me to invest my popularity and my credibility as the chess world champion into what was Gorbachev's perestroika. So, and I was in and out. Not that I just, I ever wanted to drop chess. And I thought that in 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that the job was done. So shared the belief, or joyful belief of many millions, hundreds of millions of people that the past would never come back. But by the end of that decade, in the 90s, I saw the signs that the past was returning. And eventually in 2005, I stopped playing chess. Decided that my chess career, had to come to a glorious end. And I joined pro-democracy opposition, trying to stop Russia from backsliding into KGB dictatorship. You can guess how successful I was because now I live in New York. Today I'm in Croatia.
You're about as successful as the Never Trumpers advocacy.
Yeah. Okay. I don't say that, please. Yeah. Actually, these things are somehow connected, but those are things we do. Thanks for raising, by the way, this. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's, and that's why I was always very skeptical. People ask me about my chess experience and how it helped me to navigate in this murky waters of Russian politics. Yeah. I always told them it did not help me because in Russia, unlike in chess, this is the rules, kept changing, but the result was the same. So, and, we are now, it's experienced in America. And I would probably bet my bottom dollar back then when I recognized that we were just, we were desperate trying to stop Putin's rise to power and Russia turning back into KGB dictatorship, that one day we would have this conversation in the United States. So, I think it's I don't want to say inevitable, but probably, it was a logical development, global development, because the free world became so complacent after the end of the Cold War. Yeah. And we recognized a very simple truth that the evil doesn't die. It could hide, it could disappear, it could be buried for a while under the rubble of Berlin Wall. But the moment we lose our vigilance, the moment we become complacent, the moment we do not recognize that the values are just everything and they're not transactional. So we open door for the new forms of evil. And it's not surprising that last 20 years, is a steady decline of democracy in the world, and it's the attack of authoritarianism. And now, again, who could imagine it? Now America is facing challenges that we, people like myself and my dissident friends, face back in our countries.
Given the backsliding you saw in Russia, it's hard for me to come up with a coherent path out of this trajectory that we're on towards authoritarianism. I mean, there would be one thought. If you had asked me this 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I would have said, if things get bad enough with Trump, or if things get bad enough in the world with some of these leaders, if there's enough bad actions, then people will wake up and there will be, a reaction against it. But, we went through COVID, we've gone through this invasion of Ukraine, we've seen the negative effects and nothing. And I mean, the people of Russia have suffered far greater than we have so far here in America, and you don't see a big uprising. Do you have any wisdom on that, on the path out?
Look, I wouldn't compare Russia to America.
Sure,
different traditions. It's a basically different cultural and political code in our genes.
Yeah.
So, I live in America. I can say I'm partially American, and I fully support. Actually, I've grown on American values. While most of my compatriots, they have very different, call it genetic memories. And it was not difficult for Putin to turn it back because, if we look at the current Russian predicament, actually the sufferings that Russia imposed on Ukraine, it's the war of aggression and the genocidal war that is being carried on against the neighboring country. It's, again, it somehow also was predictable because that was a trajectory. Because every regime like Putin's regime, it's starting with a soft authoritarian rule, eventually runs out of enemies inside the country. And they always have to double down, raise the stakes. Right. And country as big as Russia would inevitably turn from being looking inward, it's outward. So it will start looking at other targets. And Ukraine was a natural target. When Russia attacked the Republic of Georgia back in 2008, I wrote in my Wall Street Journal article in mid-August that next would be Ukraine. And when I was asked how did I know, I simply said because I looked at the map. and also I listened to Putin. Putin was never very secretive about his plans, which is also an interesting phenomenon with many would-be dictators and eventually dictators. They always lie about what they've done, but very often they tell you exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
After all, Mein Kampf, published in 1925, was a blueprint. But in 1925, Adolf Hitler was the head of the small nationalistic party, and nobody would imagine that 8 years later he would be in charge of Germany. When Vladimir Putin said bluntly, it was straightforward message in 2005 at the joint session of Russian Parliament and Russian Senate on April 25th, 2005, the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. He was already president of Russia, second term, in charge of Russian nukes and having control more money than probably any other individual in the history of mankind. So it was a clear strategy. It's not that he was trying to hide it. So the program of restoring the Soviet greatness, the problem of taking revenge for what Putin believed was World War III, the Cold War, and winning not because Russia had the best military, but because the West was weak. So everything has been laid down. And now we just, we are paying the price for us not listening for these very direct warnings from Putin. And unfortunately, Russian population proved to be incapable of building the strong resistance. And I'm here now just trying to tell Americans that no one is safe. Thinking that democracy can defend itself, it's a wrong narrative. Democracy is a piece of paper, basically. It's a constitution. It's a piece of paper. Yeah. It's what you believe in and how far you're willing to go to defend it. And I think now it's even by my friends, many American friends who have nothing but contempt for Trump. I think they do not recognize the seriousness of the threat to American democracy coming from Trump's second coming.
I totally agree, and it's sort of silly to make comparisons at some level between the American tradition and what you saw, what you experienced in Soviet Union. But there's certainly lessons you could learn or echoes. And I made a little list here of things that we've seen in the U.S. in this second term that are maybe even a little different from his first term. The oligarchy developing and kind of the richest, the leaders of the biggest companies kind of coalescing around Trump. Starting to erase unflattering history, internal police force consolidating with ICE. There's a culture of fear, I think now, more so than the first term. People don't want to criticize him or else he will lash out at them. A firing of non-loyalists from the government, taking stakes in private companies. I mean, that's a list of things. Like there are definitely some parallels, and it's certainly not the same. But what do you make of that?
Oh, absolutely. And the list could be longer, but I think this is there's one, common theme for all of them. And that's what Trump has been successfully doing for more than a decade now. I pointed it back in 2016, 2017. Donald Trump has been successfully normalizing things that were unacceptable. He has been single-handedly changing American political culture. So today, mentioning Watergate is kind of a joke. We have Watergate every hour. Donald Trump, when you look at so many things he did, it started with something like innocent. Oh, everybody released taxes. I don't want to release taxes.
Right.
Sue me. So step by step, he pushed American public, just one milestone to another. And today, you talked about many things that 10 years ago would be absolutely unimaginable.
Yeah.
And the way Trump deals with any crisis is he doubles down and goes even with a bigger lie, with a bigger challenge to the Constitution. So he talked about the third term. Oh, I remember I had an interview with, I was interviewing Preet Bharara just a month after Trump's elections. And I asked Preet about it. He said, it's impossible. I said, this is slow down. Yeah, I think it's impossible, but he already raised this issue. And now, again, I don't think it's going to happen, but the fact is that you already have some members of the House publicly calling for Trump staying in power for life. Yeah. And are they being criticized? Are they being, expelled from GOP? No, nothing is happening. That's why everything else, taking stakes in not just a private company, is a major private companies.
Yeah.
So where the government decision can basically influence the value of the stock. So the attention of the Trump's world is on Mamdani. Of course, we don't want to have the government-run grocery stores in New York, but obviously the threat to American democracy from this failed socialist experiments and the unfolding oligarchy, they are incompatible.
Yeah, a trial run of 4 grocery stores run by the government that will probably fail is not great. I'm against that, but literally, the president just was taking a 10% stake in a big chip maker and says he's going to bully other companies that don't buy chips from the government-approved chip company. I mean, that is straight out of, authoritarian playbook. Anyway, well, let's talk about the state of play in the Trump's favorite word, the trilat, his desired trilat between Russia and Ukraine and us. What do you see as we sit here today on Thursday, August 21st, as like the state of play in the negotiations between Russia and U.S. and Ukraine?
Yeah, if this is a trilat, so the two ends are not connected. I don't think Putin will ever meet Zelensky. And Lavrov made it very clear. So he comes up with tons of the conditions. One of them is, we're not sure Zelensky is legitimate, and they can meet only when all issues and root causes have been resolved, which means why they're meeting. So basically, Putin says, I will meet Zelensky if he's willing to capitulate. That's it. That's bottom line. The rest exists in Trump's fantasies. And in Trump's world, they're trying to pretend that Trump is doing the greatest job. Now, I give him credit. He's trying. So I'm not here to analyze why he's so flattering to Putin. So there's clearly the case of dependence, whether it's psychological dependence or there are other material reasons for his dependence. I'm not here to just to speculate. Clearly, Trump, in the presence of Putin, is melting down. That's a fact. That's what we all can see. Yes, of course, you can spin it and you can say that Trump, forced Putin to make concessions. Okay, but it's the, in the daylight. So you can see that is this. Alaska was a big triumph for Putin, and actually domestic triumph, because Putin proved that he could not control Trump, but he's back. So this the whole idea that he's totally isolated, and Trump, rehabilitated Putin, and what he got in exchange, nothing, zilch. That's important. Now, the whole idea that it's the America now is playing a key role there, and it's this, and he's trying to be kind of objective dealer. It just doesn't work because Trump made so many conditions, and Ukraine eventually accepted most of them. Putin spat on all of them. They just didn't even care. So America's credibility is fairly low, and I was a bit. I had mixed feelings when I saw European leaders flanking Zelensky in Washington.
Why?
Because we all understand, it's why? Because I think it's a shame that leaders of the free world have to flatter Trump. Again, I don't want to make comments of his, intellect and other things, but it's almost insulting for democracy as an institution. I mean, the real people, the serious people running the largest democratic countries, and the leader of the country that has been suffering from the invasion, Russian invasion, and paying huge price every day, every hour. And they had to flatter Trump. But what else they could do? I mean, Europe was weak. So Europeans have no means to help Ukraine to win the war. So they need American weapons. They need American support. Yeah. So they had to do it. And Zelensky had no other choice. So that's just, he thinks about his country. So he had to do these things, even to wear a suit. So just to play, with Trump's ego. But the fact is that Trump's ego becomes the centerpiece of American politics and also global politics. I mean, it's not going to end well, because at the end of the day, it's all we know about Trump is that everything he does, everything he says has only two points of interest: monetization and glorification. That's it. There's nothing else. So for anybody who wants to analyze it, and I'm telling you, look, don't try to search for black cat in the dark room, because it's not there. So Trump cares about Trump, not about Ukraine, not about Russia, not about America, only about Trump. And two interests: monetization, to make money, to become richer, and glorification. Now he's paranoid with the Nobel Peace Prize. He's not going to get it, but still is paranoid. He's the greatest peacemaker of all the time. So, and the fact is that American political system proved to be incapable of shifting away from this, from being centered on paranoia of one person. That's bad news. But I cannot blame Europeans. That's why I said it's a mixed feeling. They succeeded in taking Trump away from Putin's narrative. They changed the narrative. It's no longer about Ukraine giving up territories, but about them buying American weapons. I don't know whether they have this money to buy weapons, but at least they made Trump talk about something else.
Delete Me makes it easy and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off your data. It's a commodity, and anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. It feels, I think, apt to have a Soviet dissident on the podcast on the same day that we're talking about Delete Me. You never know who's out there spying on you these days, trying to get your info. I left my credit card at the bar over the weekend, and I got all kinds of concerns. Who knows what people could do with that? Luckily, our friends at the Saint had it ready, nice and safe for me. But vigilance is important. It's better safe than sorry. And that's why I'm using Delete Me. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and use promo code bulwark at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and enter code bulwark at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/bulwark, code bulwark. To that point, I don't know. Trump has sent two posts this morning about Russia on social media. Have you had a chance to see them yet? I'm excited to show them to you live here, if not.
Okay, show me right, because I saw one on Colorado, so that's why I just the too many Trump.
Yeah, he's posting all the time. He's very prodigious. One of the posts I think you're particularly suited to reply to. He posts a picture. It's a dual picture. One was you remember the picture of Nixon poking his finger at Khrushchev's chest, and he posts a side-by-side of that with himself pointing his finger at Putin. But the difference is Putin is smirking at him in his picture, and Khrushchev is like, has his eyes closed and is grimacing at Nixon. It's hard to get inside Trump's head, but I think that my interpretation of this is he realizes people are making fun of him for being weak, and he thinks this is going to make him look better. He also posts about how he goes, it's very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking an invader's country. There's no chance of winning. It's like that with Ukraine and Russia. Joe Biden would not let Ukraine fight back, only defend. How did that work out? Regardless, this is a war that would have never happened if I were president. Interesting times ahead. I don't know. How do you interpret it?
No, the comparison with Nixon and Khrushchev, yeah, he wants to look like a strong leader, opposing Soviet Union, Soviet Empire. And he was not in Alaska. Alaska was indelible spot on American reputation. It's a shame that will probably not be erased anytime soon. I think that Alaska's humiliation was much worse than stampeding Kabul, which was terrible, but it was far away. And again, it was poorly managed. It's obviously the fault of Biden administration, though we should remember that it was Trump who made a very bad deal with Taliban. Yeah. So the peace deal was done by Trump, and Trump's administration, first administration, negotiated with Taliban without the government. There were seeds already in a fertile ground to sending a message that America would walk away and Taliban would be in charge. But still, the stampede from Kabul, total disaster. But I think what people saw in Alaska was much worse, and it will require giant efforts to recover the reputation, because again, Trump looked weak is from the wrong word. I mean, he looked totally unpresidential. So that's why I think now he analyzed it. Well, probably analyzed is the wrong word. He had enough data submitted by say sycophants who tried to explain to him that something probably was not as perfect. It was not 10 out of 10, or it was 10 out of 10 for Russia, actually, not for him. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and Trump, that's why Trump is trying to come back. So Nixon picture is clearly, it's about him trying to look strong, in historical timeline. Now, as for the second one,
it didn't really work because Putin's smirking. This Putin smirking is so funny. He's like, I think I look tough here, but Putin's laughing at him. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, the second one.
Yeah. But second one is, I think it's not bad because, again, it's obviously repeated the same lie. The war would have not started if I were the president, and no indications. The only reason it would not have started because Trump would probably force Zelensky to give up his country. So that's the Putin was about to destroy Ukraine. That was a plan. It's not just it's not about Trump. It's not Biden. Putin has been building his military force because his plan was to take over Ukraine, not part of Ukraine, all Ukraine. Ukraine had become a Russian vassal state. Period. Not I'm telling you. He has been saying that. That was Russian propaganda machine, and that has been repeating since 2014, and that was a Russian official line that has not changed. Even now, Lavrov talks about Ukraine not being a sovereign state. So that's why the war of aggression was inevitable as long as Ukraine wanted to preserve its sovereignty. So now, but Trump criticism was partially correct. Biden administration restrained Ukraine from responding against Russian vulnerable infrastructure. Ukraine has not received weapons that could destroy the Crimean Bridge, and Ukraine could definitely take advantage of Russia's retreat in 2022, or could have far more successful operation in 2023 if America would have supplied weapons and also lift all restrictions on use of American weapons. Yeah. So here is Trump is right. But what kind of interesting times are ahead? I don't know. We read about new Ukrainian missiles that are being built. Some say it's the result of the joint cooperation, not with Americans, but with Europeans, Germans, and Brits. Yeah. So Ukraine is now having a very capable, probably one of the most effective military productions in the world. And it's quite interesting that America now is looking for Ukrainian drone technologies because, Russian-Ukrainian war made a lot of American weapons in the storage obsolete. America has more than 10,000 tanks sitting somewhere in Nevada and California in the desert, and they are totally irrelevant now. Instead of sending them to Ukraine, they eventually will be cut in metals, and we American taxpayers will pay Lockheed Martin or whoever, just Raytheon to do the job. No. There are thousands of them. So you have to cut them. You don't have museums that big, but they could be on Ukrainian front line. So, right. But the drone war now changed everything. So that's why now it's for America to basically to learn from Ukrainians. And I think the interesting times are ahead. But what is the American game plan in Ukraine? I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah.
Of course,
I'm
Trump doesn't know because he can change, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm skeptical that the interesting times ahead are that Trump will actually fully support Ukraine's efforts to go on offense, but it's a better position than we were in a week ago with him and his. But wait,
but it's Ukraine. No, but Ukraine doesn't look. There's no doubt Ukraine cannot, under current circumstances, does not have manpower to kick Russians away. On an open battlefield, it doesn't have to. All you have to do is to destroy Russian infrastructure. Yes, Russia is suffering now. Russian economy is not in a good shape. Actually, it's almost free fall. So what America can do is to also force Europeans to take more decisive steps to cut to absolute minimum Russian oil export, and it can be done. It's yet to be done. So, and also to lift restrictions on Ukrainians using weapons. Crimean Bridge. This is the main artery that support Crimea. So if Ukrainians can actually attack it, with the missiles, so that will change the logistics games. Plus there's so many targets. Russia is a vast country, and now the vastness of Russia works against Russia. It always helped against invaders, but it does not help. Actually, it's the opposite against drones or missiles. So, destroying Russian infrastructure, the facilities, and Ukrainians do not attack civilians. It's very, very important. The difference is Putin exclusively attacks civilians. So civilian infrastructure. Ukrainians attack either military targets or oil, depots, everything that is related to war. There's some casualties, but minimal casualties. Even Russian propaganda cannot blame Ukrainians for committing crimes against civilians.
I have to play this for you. I have no choice because the vice president was on Fox last night discussing his assessment of Putin. And I would like to hear your response to that. Let's listen.
What's it like meeting Putin? What was he like just one-on-one?
So I've actually never met Putin. The president did that meeting. I've talked to him on the phone a number of times. It's interesting. He's more soft-spoken than you would necessarily expect. The American media has a particular image of him. He's soft-spoken in a certain way. He's very deliberate. He's very careful. And I think fundamentally he's a person who looks out for the interests as he sees it of Russia. And I think one of the reasons he respects the President of the United States is because he knows the President looks out for the interests of the American people. And while they often disagree about issues, and obviously the president has been very critical of Vladimir Putin, yes, the president's also willing to work with anybody if he thinks it's going to accomplish an important goal for America. And we all agree an important goal is to stop the killing.
What say you to that?
I would like to challenge Vice President and just to bring one quote from Donald Trump that was critical of Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump said terrible things about virtually everybody. I'm not sure he said something about J.D. Vance. When J.D. Vance called him Hitler 9 years ago, or like Hitler, I don't think Donald Trump noticed J.D. Vance. He was too small. But he insulted every competitor, within the Republican Party, every American politician, every leader of the Democratic country. He even went very critical, not as dramatic, but still critical about dictators. He feels more comfortable with dictators than with democratic leaders, but still, he was critical, even about the North Korean dictator or Xi Jinping, so, Erdogan. So occasionally he said something bad about them or critical about them. Maybe I missed it. I never heard Trump saying anything negative about Vladimir Putin. And of course, he never did anything that could harm Vladimir Putin. So here, I think Vice President was exaggerating. So that's one. Now, two is, soft-spoken. Stalin was soft-spoken. I don't know about Hitler, but you're talking about worst dictator. This is the guy who is responsible for hundreds of thousands, most likely millions of lives, who has no allergy for blood. It's a most, it's a vicious, brutal killer that's living on the planet. Soft-spoken. Now, speaking about interest of Russia, okay, Mr. Vice President, I mean, it's just, stop selling this nonsense. I don't know whether you pretend to be an idiot or just, you feel comfortable because that's a way to just to stay in the Trump's, entourage. Vladimir Putin caused tremendous suffering for Russia. You have more than million casualties for what? For, few square miles? For what? Of totally scorched earth? That's interest of Russia? Are you serious? The Russia is turning into a Chinese colony. It's a Chinese gas station with nukes. So, and that's interest of Russia. And, as for Donald Trump taking care of America and just, American interests, I leave for American voters to decide. But again, it doesn't seem to me that Donald Trump does anything that may, hurt his interest, to promote the interest of America at large.
Speaking of pretending to be an idiot, I also am obligated to pick your brain about, there's a video going around this week of the Tucker Carlson show. He has a guest on, and Tucker says, Tucker agrees with his guest when he says, it turns out I think the story we got about World War II is all wrong. One can make the argument we should have sided with Hitler against Stalin. What do you think about that?
Look, I saw it. Yes. The problem again is that it's an attempt to distort historical facts because America sided with Great Britain, with the one remaining stronghold of democracy against Hitler. Hitler was the greatest threat. Stalin was bad. I mean, the Stalin-Hitler combination was horrible. And many European nations still, recovering from being squeezed between Nazis and communists. Ask the Baltic nations. Again, it's tragedy. Some of them had to make a choice. And Putin's propaganda is still blaming, look at these Latvians, they sided with Nazis. Yeah, but they had Soviets on the other side. So it's terrible. So this is many European nations suffered because of this horrible dilemma. An impossible choice they had to make. So, but siding with Hitler against Great Britain, that's important. But that's it's a slide. You're sliding down. Yeah. And by the laws of physics, when you're sliding down, there's only one direction, and the speed keeps increasing. So I'm not surprised that the Tucker, who at one point praised Putin and took, no doubt, just took a very hefty compensation for his services. Now he is fairly comfortable, talking about standing with Hitler, which is, by the way, it's a great illustration that we have to connect the dots. Let's stop saying, Hitler is impossible. No, by the way, in 1938, when European democracies, Britain and France, gave Hitler Sudetenland, most important defended part of Czechoslovakia, Hitler was not Hitler from history books. Hitler was in 1938, even before Kristallnacht. It happened in November. In September, he has not started a single aggressive war. Of course, Hitler was bad, but it's not Hitler 1945. So today, Putin is much worse than Hitler in 1938. So, and it's good. Tucker, who likes Putin, so he talks about Hitler with some sympathies. That's natural because Putin and Hitler belong together. So thank you, Tucker Carlson.
All right. Last thing, your Substack, you talk about on The Next Move, which people should check out, about strategic insights on what we should do going forward on authoritarianism. Do you have anything right now, people who are listening, as we think about the state of play in August of 25, that we should be doing here in America that you're not seeing enough of?
Again, I think it's important to understand that the threat to American democracy is real. And I think it's not yet time to talk about 2028. It's not even time to pay attention to Trump's, murmuring about his term and some of the Republicans, just offering him, powerful life. I think the top priority is 2026. Gerrymandering in Texas is just the beginning. And Trump's attacking mail vote, it's also just the beginning. Because Trump has reached a point, I think it's probably point of no return. He cannot lose the levers of power. The only institution in America, and it's Article 1 of the Constitution, that could stop Trump is the Congress. So Trump will be number one priority to hold his firm control of the Congress. That's a key. So in ideal scenario, Democrats could find 4 Republicans, highly unlikely, that could shift sides and they can take over the Congress. Unlikely, but still, let's fantasize. Maybe, God knows. But in 2026, the battle lines will be as clear as the sky in a good day. So because remember, Trump doesn't lose elections. If election is lost, it's rigged. So he must win elections. So we have a person who never recognized his loss in 2020 and tried to run the public will by more or less, you can make a coup on January 6th. First thing he did, he pardoned these people. That's again a very important message. And now in 2026, he will have all levels of power, including DOJ and FBI, and statistics in his sides. So to protect his majority in the House. So we have to work, day and night to make sure that American people will have a chance to take part in the free and fair elections. It will be free, but I'm afraid it will not be fair. Because I'm afraid, and if you don't trust me, if you think I'm paranoid, okay, fine. I'm Russian. I earn my rights to be paranoid. So just ask one question. If, it's at the crucial moment on this day, imaginary day X, will Pam Bondi and Kash Patel follow Constitution or Donald Trump's orders? When you answer this question honestly, you understand why we all should worry about what happens next year. It's a 250th anniversary of the greatest event in history, the Declaration of Independence, birth of the United States. Let's make sure that the republic that was won back then will not die now.
Amen to that, sir. I lied. I have one really quick thing I have to ask you about. One other thing. Have you seen this video? I'm not a big chess watcher, I have to admit, but Magnus Carlsen has been a 5-time world champion, has captured people's attention. There's this video going around 2 months ago where he loses this match and he gets so angry. Yeah, he throws it down. And many people like were sharing this, and even those of us who don't watch chess, because just the emotion in the moment was so fascinating. And I was just wondering what you thought about that match and his reaction.
Actually, it was a good promotion for the game of chess. Let's agree on that. So
okay, for sure.
Because it became viral. Now look, I understand emotions. I mean, Magnus is the strongest player, but he's no longer the world champion because he decided not to defend official title, and he just plays for money and for fun. And again, he's a tremendous player. And he faced the young Indian who is now official world champion, but not as strong or as impressive as Magnus. And Magnus wanted to win, and he was absolutely winning. That's important. He outplayed Gukesh completely. He was winning. It's the couple of correct moves. The game was over, but Gukesh kept, fighting. So, and Magnus lost his vigilance. He became complacent. Okay. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and it happens. So it's instead of having, just easy win, he had to work hard to win. And every time, you see that your difficulties kept increasing. So you need to get nervous. And he lost control of the game. And at one point he had to already basically, to step on his pride and say, okay, let's make a draw. Let's, but he pushed and he lost. And I think he was so emotional, overwhelmed. He just banged, So, but okay, emotions. Chess is a very emotional game, very cruel game.
It was really captivating to watch. Anyway, Garry Kasparov, thank you so much for coming on the Bulwark podcast, sharing your wisdom. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely.